Welcome back to the podcast. I am so excited today to have Corey Kossack with me from Orchard. We are going to be talking about career readiness, getting our teenagers ready to launch as adults. I have 9 kids and I have been launching them on repeat, one after another. And this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. So, Corey, thank you for being with me. I'm so excited to have you.
It's my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Well, why don't you start by just giving us a little overview of what Orchard is because we're going to bring it up over and over again. So tell us a little bit
Sure.
about it.
Sounds good. So Orchard is an AI career readiness platform. It's designed primarily for K through 12 students, most specifically middle and high school. And the whole focus, like my mission behind this thing, is to end the cycle of students falling into a job after high school or college. And I use that term very specifically because, as I'm sure you all have in your life, you hear people talk about this all the time. Oh, I fell into it. Like it just
Mm-hmm.
happened.
Mm-hmm.
And while that can be a wonderful serendipitous thing in certain cases, in many cases it's not. And then people find themselves stuck on the wrong path for themselves. And it's very difficult to unwind. And I've spent a lot of time helping people unwind those things in their own lives. And so, yeah, so basically we have a AI career counselor, Orchie, that helps students brainstorm, think about different paths for themselves, learn about the world of work and all its little corners and everything that, makes up the sum of the parts. And we do that so that students can really have a deep understanding of what it is they care about, why they care about it, and start to sketch out what their life could look like, as well as the path, the plan, the steps to actually get to where they want to go, and really pressure test that along the way.
Okay.
And so we do that for individuals, and we do it within school systems as well, where we provide this as a framework and a platform to go in and explore all of these things.
Okay. I wish that something like this had been around when I was in school because it probably would have saved me from my dumb degree. It's funny now to hear all the talk around going to college because people are saying oh, you don't need to go. And I don't know if I agree with that or not, but I don't think you always need to go. But I do think if you go, that you should be intentional. And I didn't have any of this. And I was the oldest. And afterwards, when I would lecture my siblings because I quickly realized that I didn't have something. So I think people know that if they are in that situation, they know that this is needed, or if they've got a kid that's I say they flounder after they graduate. There's different words, but if you've got a kid that's floundering or you've got one that doesn't know what they want, then this seems like it could be such a really amazing, useful tool. How how
Thank
how
you.
many careers does it know about? Does it
Virtually everything. So basically, I would look at it this way. So the Orchie is trained on like publicly available information that gets synthesized, but also we film, we call them day in the life, but I mean, it's like we really film people, real professionals in the workforce today across hundreds of different careers, and we keep filming every week. And what we do is we don't just cover what is this occupation, like what does the job do and what do you do every day? It's also what is it like to be you, right? What is it like to live your life in this role or in this line of work or in this path, and really get deep down into it, in addition to how is AI changing the work that you do? Like,
yeah.
what are your feelings about it? Like, what are you seeing? And so we get this pulse of all that. So we're continuing to add to that, library of content. But even beyond that, Orchard has access to all sorts of information about different types of careers.
Yeah, I was in there today and saw one on project management or something. And like, because that was like a match. I retested my interests in the software, and that was one that like seemed to pop. And I'm like, oh, I don't even know what someone does in project management. So I was watching those videos that you were talking about. And then I started like doing other research too, because of like I should have been doing some of this for my some of my other projects and I wasn't. So it was very useful. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and also like it's just I think so much of the assessment space and interest inventory and these kind of things that exist, especially like in the public school system, they're in many ways they're deterministic, right? Where it's like, hey, you took this test here are your matches, right? Here are the ones that are for you.
Yes.
And while we have self assessments and we have different things where Orchie, the counselor, will probe and try and pull stuff out of you as the student to really get to what you care about, why, and what your interests are, and those sorts of things. And we provide these explorations, which is like these tailored matches. It's not intended to be deterministic. Intended to spark curiosity and get you discovering the world of work. It's not like here are the 8 careers and there's nothing outside of this. You know, you talk about retesting your interest. You can have a lot of interests.
Hmm.
You can have a lot of skills.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things you could be good at or potentially you could be happy doing, but there's a lot of facets to life and what makes a fulfilled life and those sorts of things. And unfortunately, we don't give it enough time. You know, this is it sounds insane when you say it out loud, but this is one of the most consequential decisions a person can make in their life. And yet within school, we don't give a whole bunch of time to it. As parents, we don't dedicate a bunch, we spend a lot more time taking our kids to dance class and sports and this and that and whatever
Hmm.
than we ever would saying, all right, let's sit down and try and figure this out.
Yes, yes, yes,
Right.
yes, yes.
And so it's this really wild phenomenon in our society. And so, yeah, it's really, really,
Yeah, I have a theory that the reason parents don't jump into it is one, it wasn't part of their own education, right? Like that level of intentionality, but also a lot of people feel like they didn't get it quite right for themselves. And sometimes we're hesitant to teach from our failure. I call those parenting moments like actually magic. My kids will actually listen to me if I tell them how I screwed up. But a lot of times we are not being completely honest because who wants to admit that they've like invested their life in something they don't really love? But I think that a lot of people are kind of somewhere on that continuum. Like they don't know how, or they did end up in a career that they just really don't love, and they don't have a framework for how to even talk about it. And I believe that the parents should be driving this, even though the schools are doing it and should do it. I think the parents have the most, they're going to know their kid the best. And they obviously know all the factors, the economics and all the things that would come into play for a
yeah.
situation.
You know, it's funny. It's kind of like a lot of things in life where sometimes it's really difficult to make things stick unless it's the
Yeah.
other person's idea, even if you
Yes.
had the idea first. And so as a
Yes.
parent, you're kind of like, all right, I I know that you should be a whatever, a musician or or an artist or something like that. Like that's just you. But you don't want to be the one that told them this is what you need to do. And then they're like, oh, my life is screwed up because you told me I should go do this.
Yes.
And
Yes. Yes.
but even so, like the kids typically won't listen to the parents, right? Like some will, but a lot of them will just be like, no, 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 my parents are stupid. They think I need to go do this,
Yes.
or I need to be a doctor, whatever. I'm gonna go, you know, the
Yeah.
opposite direction. And so, yeah, there's a lot of, you know, insecurity among parents, and I still count myself, my wife and I, you know, count ourselves in that as well, where it's like you want to guide them, but you're like, where's my role in this? Right. And so it's
Yes.
a very, very tricky, challenging thing. So I empathize with parents.
Yeah, for sure. Our failure in our own education framed our narrative going forward, and that did actually seem to work for our kids. Like because we were just talking about ourselves, you know, all the time, forever.
Yeah.
And it drove the conversation.
Well, one thing I'd love to touch on, because you did say earlier, like, hey, this is, great for kids that like aren't sure what they want to do. I'd actually challenge that a bit because while that is absolutely true, it's also for people who think they know what they want to do, right?
Yes,
So I think this is true of all people. It's especially true in like the current generations of
yes,
kids where you get this tunnel vision, right? Where it's like Uncle John said I should be an electrician because I'm really good with my hands and like I'm really curious about how things work and function and the way the world's going. Like this is going to be a great career. And so like I'm good. Like this is it. Right. Or they spend 5 minutes in something like Orchard and they're narrowing down a few things and comparing things. And they're like, great, welder, great, AI product manager. Like this is
yes,
my path,
yes, yeah,
and you just get that tunnel vision. And
yes,
then a lot of times it doesn't take that long before you realize like, oops, that's
yeah,
actually not what I thought it was going to be, or I'm actually not good
yes,
at this. And I'll share my own experience with this because I was a pretty driven kid. I wanted to be different than my parents, have a different life than my parents, I was really into technologies, great student, all of that stuff, very self-motivated. And I graduated high school believing that I was going to do computer animation and make like Pixar movies and,
yeah,
stuff like that. It's like
fun.
the time when like Shrek and Ice Age were first coming out. And I was like, this is amazing that they can do this. Like, I want to go be an animator and do this stuff. And I was very, very fortunate because this absolutely could have gone a different direction. And I didn't, may not have gotten this experience so early. But my freshman year of college, I was able to get into this computer animation class and actually do the stuff that using the real software that the animators were using to
Yeah,
do these things. And I'm in this class and I'm like, I don't know, a couple months in to this semester and I'm like, I am terrible at this. Like I am just awful. I don't have the spatial
yeah,
stuff that I need to really make this work right. And I was in this computer lab for what felt like 100 hours a week, Friday nights, Saturday nights, trying to finish my projects while others in the class, in 10% of the time were producing these masterpieces. And my stuff just wasn't very good at all. And it's not that you try something and you're like, hey, I struggled, therefore it's not for me. Like lots of things you can work on, but it wasn't natural for me. And I also saw, you know, I don't want my life to be like this, where I'm just sitting there, just doing the stuff all the time. And so that was a big eye opener. And that was freshman year of college, where my whole like view of who I was and where I was going was just like blown up, just like
yeah,
that. And that happens to people way more often than we talk about. So we're like, yeah, Susie knows she wants to go and, be a lawyer or she wants to go do
yes.
whatever. You think, oh yeah, she's got it figured out. And it's like, most people do not have it figured out. And you'll see this in when you look at the data of like what adults are doing in terms of changing careers and doing all this kind of stuff.
Yes, no, I 100% agree. And I think it's funny in college, you were fortunate that you had a class that was like that interest, like related to your career first year of college. Because a lot of times they make you take all these gen eds, sometimes for like 2 years almost before you get anything real, which is probably what people are talking about when they're like, college isn't useful. Well, that isn't very useful if you spend 2 years and you still don't know if you want to do something. That's a lot. That's not very
Or
useful.
4 years, right? Like, I
Or
mean,
4 years. Yeah.
it felt
Yeah.
like a bolt of lightning that they had this class,
Yes.
right? Because it's not like every place you go, they have like computer animation classes for college
Yes.
freshmen or
No.
even college seniors, So yeah, so I was very, very fortunate that
Yeah.
that happened so early.
It seems like a lot of kids they have that experience and then psychology is the default degree that a lot of kids fall into. And it kind of makes sense though, because it's about like kind of hacking your own brain. It's like it's kind of like identifying like in its own way the fact that people like feel like they don't actually know they don't feel like they know something. And that is a way to know more about thinking or knowing themselves or knowing other people. And it doesn't have to be like that, right? Like there is a different path, and the it seems like the path could be a lot more clear cut than the way we've been doing it as a society, right? So maybe this would be a good spot for me to just ask, because like when somebody comes into Orchie, and I did go in there and I played around in there, but I don't think I experienced all of the possibilities. Like it's designed for K through 12, but let's say somebody's using this with like a high school kid, because that's when people get hyper focused on like what is next. Like, what is the process designed to be like? Like, if somebody comes in, they're there for the first time, what's it supposed to be like?
Yeah, so basically, the way it's supposed to be is you start with a self-assessment that the student takes. And this is just to give a baseline. It's not intended to be like this crazy scientific,
Right.
thing to nail everything right off the bat. But basically, the self-assessment measures them across 8 dimensions. And these 8 dimensions make up what we call the career readiness index,
Okay.
which is something that we're providing to schools as a way to measure how ready are your students for life after school.
Okay.
The 8 dimensions, we'll see if I can rattle them off just right off the top of my head, are self-reflection, goal setting, planning, execution, exploration, skills, experience, and I'm missing one. Missing one. Ah,
Yeah,
so
I did
terrible.
note.
I failed the
It's fine.
quiz.
I noticed when I took the test, I think I thought that I was going to come in and I was going to do like, it was going to ask me a bunch of questions about like my interest in medicine or writing or things like that. And it didn't ask any of that stuff. It was exactly as you said. It kind of like touched on like your curiosity or like how you handle yourself in different situations or different types of environments, but it wasn't like focused on a career. Like I didn't come out of that and go like, "Oh, I should have been a nurse." I didn't do there was nothing about that. So you take that career exploration and then what's next?
Yeah, and so the eighth one, I just looked it up, is focus.
Okay.
So
Okay, so that's
this
important.
is, yeah. So basically, this is all designed to basically be like, all right, have you done the work on yourself, on understanding what's out there, on understanding what your goals are and all of that stuff? And then step through the process of building the skills you need and getting the experience you need to really know, okay, I have a solid idea of where I'm headed. Right. So
Yes.
that's the point. So once that's done, then basically Orchie helps guide the student based on how they score on those 8. They can either freeform explore however they want, but Orchie will give them the nudge essentially to be like, "Hey, I know you think that you like have this figured out, but you have not explored enough." Right? You
Hmm.
have not explored enough. So go explore. Go explore careers, go explore education paths and institutions, go watch, day in the life of individuals doing lots and lots of different things. And
Interrupt you. What does
yeah,
exploring mean? What does that look like?
yeah. So within the product, basically, it's multifaceted. But one, you have Orchie who you can chat with, like you'd chat with any kind of AI tool, except it's scoped down just to this type of stuff. So you can't ask
Yeah.
Orchie things that you're not supposed to
Yeah.
ask somebody
Perfect.
who's
That's
helping with
good.
your career.
Guardrails.
Yep, no, lots of guardrails. And so basically, you know, just chatting with Orchie about your interests, about different types of careers, about what it takes or the skills that you might need or different things like that is part of exploration. But then we have data on all these careers, so hundreds and hundreds of types of careers where you can explore everything from the money to like what do you do hour by hour in the day, like a typical day. What are the education paths that people took? So instead of saying, hey, if you want to do this, it requires this level of education, it's actually a spectrum, right? Like 50% of people got this type of degree,
Yes.
30% of people got this type of degree, 20% of people did none of it.
Yes.
And they got
Yes.
into this career, right?
Yes.
And so that's the real data around it. And so you look through all of that kind of stuff, you watch and experience these careers through the eyes and words of people that are doing them today. And you ask questions, you poke holes in it, and you say like, hey, I like these things. Does this align with me? And if I was going to do, hey, being an orthopedic surgeon sounds pretty cool. What kind of education is required? And then you learn that the orthopedic surgeon that we talk to about it talks through the 13 years of post-secondary education that they went through before they earned like a real income. And you're like, yeah, that sounds cool, but I think I want to have a family like
Yes.
before I'm in my mid 40s.
Yes.
And so maybe that's not for me,
Yeah.
or maybe I want to think about a different path. And that's all part of exploration.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you have those interviews with these people because I kind of have cultivated that habit in my real life. But even with cultivating that, I'm still limited, right? Like I actually grilled my oral surgeon on just that, and he had it was about 13 years, and he told me like, yeah, I was driving an old beater car for all these years where my friends were like, they had their established careers. It's exactly what you said. And that was opening to me, because I had no idea. But obviously, your ability to do that in real life is limited by the people you know or your natural curiosity in those moments. So I love that you have interviewed all these people in here and that they're kind of giving the behind the scenes things you can't know, which, like, that's so valuable. Like,
Yeah, I
how,
mean, it's amazing. I always say this to people that, I've been in this space for a long time with this focus on, the workforce and what people are doing and how they're doing it. And yet when we started and like really got deep into this process, we learned just how much we didn't know. Like we didn't know, not the average person, but like we're focused on this and how much we didn't know.
yes.
We had this interview with the head athletic trainer for the Miami Marlins baseball team. And he talked about like when the season's on, what his schedule is like.
Okay.
And it was like, yeah, so, I'm out the door at like 5 a.m. and I don't get home until 11 p.m. And it's like 7 days a week. You know, whoa, wait, how? What is it
Yeah.
that you need to do? Like, yeah, I get it. Like, the pitcher's elbow hurts or whatever, and you got to figure it
Yeah.
out. But like,
Yeah.
that seems pretty excessive, but that is how it is.
Yeah.
And you just wouldn't know. And these are things that matter, right? It's not
Yeah.
just, hey, I love, physiology and how the body works and keeping people peak performance, and I love sports and this, and so I'd be really good at this. And it's like, do you want to live that life? That is a
Yes.
choice, you know?
Yes. Yes, we have had those exact conversations because often with young people, the conversation goes like, when I grow up, I want to be rich or something like that, like broad and vague and undefined. And so then you have to like narrow that down. Well, what does that mean to you? And how much money is that? And kind of what kind of life leads to you having that much money? Like, what do you need to do? How many hours a day do you need to work? Do you want to work that much a day? Like that kind of cycle, which is useful, but without some like specific framework for the ideas that they come up with, especially for careers like that. Like I feel like you hear kids say that they want those. That's a great career, and they want to work for like the professional leagues. My son who plays football was like, I want to play football in college. And I was like, please no, please no, but whatever. I was hoping he would figure that out. But yeah. So I actually think like the thought that popped in my head as you were talking, I was like, oh, this is really great. But like, probably if parents sat down with their kids to do this, I know it's designed for the teenagers to be able to do it themselves, but like, I have a feeling that once the parents saw how it worked, they would probably want to kind of go on some rabbit trails. Like, what about me?
I
Oh,
was
yeah.
I was joking actually with my team the other day that the power users may end up being the parents.
Yes. Yes.
One, I've helped a lot of career changers for a lot of years, so I know that
Yes.
that group, can really eat it up. But even independent of their own stuff, curiosity for their own kids
Yes.
and the college question, which again gets way oversimplified. of like,
Yes.
is it necessary? Is it not? It's like what actually matters is the intent and the purpose, right? So have a purpose filled education, not
Yes.
an
Purpose
education by
filled. Yes.
default. And, and so, parents will go in and they'll be like, hey, which path, is really necessary to get them to this type of school? If
Yes.
I send them to Vanderbilt, is that going to be a good investment or not? And like all of these things.
Yeah, that's no. It's I really think that the parents, because we kind of went through this in our own house. We've gone through it. My husband just turned 50. I'm 47. So like, people have that like midlife, like, am I doing what I want to do? And we've actually had some like funny rabbit trails as he's tried to figure out like, oh, I think I want to do, he was like, I want to be a pilot. And I'm like, a pilot? You're almost 50. And he was ready to sign up for like pilot school. And I was like, you should do a trial, like a test, like flight. He's like, no, that costs money. I'm like, the whole thing costs money. He went on
Flight
that
school's like
test.
$100,000. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the first part of it is only 15 or something like,
Okay.
but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And the test flight was like $200 or something like that. And he was like, should I do it? I'm like, 100%. So he goes up in that flight, came back down. And when he got home, I mean, he was green. Like he was green. He looks like sick. He was like, I have never felt so bad. And like, he was like, I cannot do this. This is not for me. I'm like, wow. He had built this all up to something only to realize that there were factors he didn't realize, he didn't know about himself or the situation. And we have to figure out a way to know some of those things before we spend so much time and money pursuing something only to be locked in or miserable or something. Yes, just it's wild. So, do parents usually do this? Well, it's designed for schools first. So, how does it work like in a school? We'll start there and then we can kind of branch out. Like in a school, do they just like give the computer to a kid? How does it work?
Yeah. And so I'll add that by the time this airs, whenever it does, we actually will have opened up the platform for, students anywhere and parents, whatever, and
Okay.
all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's serving both, but in a school setting, what typically happens is a school or district signs up to offer this to the student population. And they all do like a single sign on through the school system and whatever, and they auto get their accounts. And then either a counselor goes and takes over a class period, like a college and career
Okay.
counselor takes over a class period periodically and runs an exercise, or a teacher might do that. And the exercises are anything like, you could be in English class or you could be in whatever class. And the teacher or counselor says like, hey, go, pull up Orchard here, pick a few, pick an interest area like an industry or something like that. And then go identify 3 careers that just look interesting. Don't overthink it. Just, go spend a couple minutes on each. Watch. We produce these like TikTok style shorts that are part of the content that we film. Watch a few shorts on each of them. We're just going to take about 10 minutes. And then after that, close your laptop and let's all have a discussion. We're going to go around to different groups and we're going to ask you what surprised you, right? What surprised you about what you saw?
Yeah.
Or what's something you learned? Or how do you think this relates to what we've learned in class in the last 2 weeks? Or any of these things, right? And I've actually done this myself, with students. So we do some work like with student athletes locally here in Nashville, where we go in and it's like a nighttime session, and we have them do some of these things, and then we go around the room and talk, and it is a blast. Like just listening to what comes out of the
Yes.
kids and the questions, they're actually really hungry for information.
Yes.
And so that's a good example of how it typically works.
Okay.
And then the scope of this is pretty limitless. And I say that because you can align really every academic subject to career possibilities and
Yeah.
skills and core competencies and all that stuff. And so you could do that, an infinite number of times with different exercises, lesson plans, stuff like that we provide. And then the kids can, explore on their own at home as well. create action plans to how do I get to where I want to go from where I am.
So you said lesson plans. Is that built into it? I didn't come across it when I was
Yeah. So it's not surfaced within like the platform itself. So we
okay.
have basically a library of plans and we continue making custom ones. So we'll talk with
Okay.
school leaders and we're like, hey, what are you trying to do? Like what do you have
Yeah.
already? What are
Yeah.
your gaps? Like where do you see this fitting in?
Yeah.
And then we just do it and we just make
Yeah.
make stuff
Yeah.
co-design with them so that
Yeah.
it feels especially relevant
Yeah.
to, their own
Yeah.
situation.
I told you I make custom curriculum. So that's the part where my brain like lights up because for homeschooling, I mean, you're working with schools, but in the homeschool space, people are always trying to, well, in every space, you're trying to get the kids' motivation, like that, tap that motivation. And if you can tie a core subject to something they have to do to something that would like light them up, then usually that's kind of like the magic interchange right there and figuring out a way to do that. So if those possibilities are built in, I'm like, oh, I need to look at it
But
again with
yeah,
new eyes towards that.
absolutely. Absolutely. So we could have a long conversation about that.
Yes. Yeah.
But basically, I think of it as disengagement in school is a lack of alignment to their future, right?
Yes.
And so either they don't know what they want, and therefore it's hard to see how
Yeah.
math or English or history or whatever like relates to their future, or they think they know what they want, but they don't see how it connects. They're like, look, I already know how to read. So like, who cares? Right. And it's like, no, there's actually a lot more to this. Here's why communication is going to be really important in your life and where it's going to connect. And you give kids a goal and you know this, I'm sure better than anyone. You give them a goal, you see what happens. It is so different than just, hey, you need to do this stuff because grades are important and blah, blah, blah.
Yes. And if it's a goal that's like meaningful to them and not one that's just a parent set goal, then like they become unstoppable. I've watched it over and over with my kids. Like this unmotivated person all of a sudden becomes this unstoppable force. And like I'd like to take the credit, but I don't really think I can take the credit. Like there's just like there's just something like when the right thing comes across their path, it lights them up and then like carries them. And the question that everyone has is like, how do you do that? And so this is one way that you can do that as a family. I'm thinking like this would actually be fun to like sit with my kids and just kind of do it with them because yeah, it's set up that they could do this on their own. Like it asks the questions, but I also know that having teenagers, they their own motivation to keep doing something without external prompting, stimulation, whatever, is sometimes limited. So it
Yeah,
would
the
be fun.
structure matters too,
Yeah.
right? So it's one thing to say, hey, student, or hey, son or daughter of mine, you have access to this incredible treasure trove of information and help, go use it. It's another thing to say, like, hey, did you do this week's exercise?
Yes.
Right? Like that
Yeah.
structure really helps to make things happen.
Yeah. Or or to like even log in and be like, "Hey, what do we want to look at today?" Like it is pretty conversational. So like it would not be that hard for a parent who was even just trying to get the ball rolling to say like, "Hey, which of these three things sound kind of interesting to you?" And they start that process, go type it in and, pull it up. And then there's the videos of the guys talking or girls talking.
The other thing I really like about it is, we talk about aligning someone's goals to the stuff and to academics and how it really brings it together. But sometimes it's a goal that maybe is misaligned. I'll use the one just because this is so common. Like, I'm going to be a YouTuber, right? Like, I want to be a YouTuber.
Yeah.
And some kids will grow up and that's what they will do. They will be a content creator and all that stuff and produce their own things. But part of the process is, okay, great. You want to do that. Why do you want to do that? Right. And just peeling it back. And then what happens is that they start to get a better picture of what it is that's motivating them to do that. And throughout the process, they then realize there's more than one way to accomplish that goal. And
Yes.
so if I did these other things,
Yes.
actually that satisfies it in the same way, and maybe even more so because there's this other factor that I'm not really crazy about. And
Yes.
so instead of what we sometimes like to do as parents, which is like, hey, I know you think you want that, but like stop that and go over here, it becomes their idea, right?
Yes.
They see it themselves, and that
Yes.
actually creates the change.
And that's obviously ideal. My oldest son wanted to be a YouTuber too. He wanted to take over my office. He wanted me to not be in the office. He had the whole setup so he could play video games all day and make, content. And I was
Yeah,
like, no, that's not
yeah,
your life. I'm
yeah,
sorry. When you buy your own house, if you want to do that. But like I did put the kibosh on it and but in the moment, I was not able to translate it into like, how can I
yeah.
make this your
But
idea?
what if you could? What if you could be like,
I know.
great, here,
Great.
let's do these things so that you can get better at that. And like, let's start to
I
think about
couldn't.
this and get your plan together. And then they're like, yeah, I don't know that I want people harassing me when I go to Starbucks. Like,
Yes,
that's
yes,
not
yes,
really,
yes, the fame side. Yeah, that's so
yeah,
funny. But you're 100% right. Like often there's more than one way to kind of fill that bucket that we're trying to fill with the thing that we're trying to do. Now, you've tested this with lots of kids. How do you know that it works? Like any different than like me being at home with my kid chit-chatting, or maybe I'm not, or like whatever the schools are currently doing. Like, how can you prove that this is any more beneficial?
yeah. So that's an awesome question. And it's actually why we created this career readiness index concept. Measuring career readiness in schools has been notoriously difficult for the longest time. And the reason is that think about the traditional measurements, right? It's test scores, right? Whether it's like reading, math, and whatever, or it's the SAT and the ACT, it's grades, it's college acceptance, it's college graduation, and many things that are years down the road. And so schools like to do things like, hey, we did a 10-year study on students who these students took some type of career and technical education class, like some class. It could be like auto shop or,
Yes. Yes,
whatever.
something.
Like they did something. And on average, they made 3% more than their counterparts who did not. And it's like
Okay.
success.
Yes. Yes.
And it's like,
Yes.
nah, okay, fine. But like really what this does is it measures in real time. So the value of the platform is not this self-assessment that starts to give them a baseline. It actually grows with them as they're doing more exploration, more planning. They're adjusting their plan. They're building skills inside and outside the platform. They're getting experience. And so the measurement of success is, does the score increase over time?
Okay.
Right. And so you can actually see that.
Do they have to
And
retake the test, or is it kind of monitoring that as it goes along?
no, so it's not about the test. The test is a way to give them, instead of assuming people all kind of start at the same place, the
Hmm.
test is a way to kind of get a baseline
Okay.
of like
Okay.
where you're at or where you
Yeah.
think you're at. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you get a seventh grader come in, they're like, I have all the experience I need. And they're like hitting it. And then at a certain point, it gets validated in the platform that that's not really the case. And
Yes.
they just get taken away. Right. But yeah, so it's not about the tests, it's actually about their actions. And so you can see they're working on themselves, they're looking into
Okay.
things, they're gaming out different paths and adjusting things. They're setting plans in place and then they're executing on them or they're not. Right. And so
Okay.
all of those things make up, it's kind of like a credit score for career readiness. It
Okay. Now,
adjusts over time.
as you're saying this, my brain is defaulting to kind of like the old school way that we did career assessment if we had it, which was like go to the career office and take a test, and they would tell you, what few careers that you would maybe be good at. Like I said, my husband, his was a trash man. That was one of his. So that was kind of a one and done. kind of mindset on career assessment. It like took a snapshot of who you were as a person in that few minutes you were in that room. What kind of, like, ideally, if someone is doing this kind of, has this career readiness mindset and they're like, this is the season we're in, or like, how is this designed to be used? Is it designed to be used like a few times, as much as you want? Like, where's that ideal sweet spot where you start to see the benefits?
Yeah, so this it's interesting. So the benefit can happen with a single use. Like it
Okay.
really can with a single use. However, ideally, it's something that happens over many years, right?
Okay.
And so it's not just, I know we're talking a lot about the initial assessment and exploration and stuff like that. But where the platform is going is actually building skills, building experience
Yes.
towards
Okay.
everything. And so the idea is if you look at the story I told,
Yeah.
the stories that we've all heard, and the way people change over time, the idea is that we're really investing a lot more into this than we have been, and that this is part of an ongoing development of a
Right.
student. If they're clear, like, hey, I know what I want to do, I want to do this, great. Start building the skills, take the actions towards it. And then through that process, you'll learn a lot about yourself. And you may decide that you made a choice that's no longer for you. But you've learned a ton. You're not starting at zero again. You've learned a
Right.
ton about yourself. And then you
Yes.
can go like that.
Yeah.
And so that's the idea. But we see everything from, hey, student was in it for 10 minutes and they've solved all of their life's problems. And that's, the end
Right.
of the story for them as far as they're concerned. And to, hey, every week, students or parents are going in there, or teachers, whoever, are going in there and they're doing some more stuff. They're doing some more work together to really understand
Yeah.
the world that's out there and what the opportunities are.
Yeah. So it has benefits if you do it only on a limited scale, like my kind of one and done example, but it has potentially much, much greater benefits if you kind of use it as a tool. Yeah. Like, and that makes sense. It's kind of like in my own house, we talk about career readiness stuff kind of ad nauseum because of our own experiences. And we have seen their interests and ideas change over time as we've had those conversations. But this is a way to like do it kind of in a guided way in a software so that you're not losing track of what you've already learned. And if you don't know how to have those conversations or you don't know about these careers, it's all kind of built in, kind of makes it easy, plug and play. It's like one of the best uses of AI, actually. Like there's a lot of like conversation around AI right now. So we got to like identify the clear winners, right? So, like,
Yeah. And career exploration and refinement is definitely, even at, the highest like government levels and stuff, have
yes.
identified it as like a top three use case. And it really is true because, well, there's so many reasons. So, but yeah.
Yeah. No, like I said, I think parents, I'm like, I want to use it with my husband because you think about how like we get locked into careers and then you're like, I want to change, but I need a certain amount of money. Like I can't like go back to entry level, right? Like, and so parents themselves are kind of it's a different conversation than teenagers who are starting at entry level, but parents who want to pivot, it's some of those like alternative pathways. Like when I looked at the project management one, it was like, oh, you can go get a 4-year degree. That's like the most common. But then they have these boot camps, apparently, that are like much shorter pathway into that career field. And I was like, that's so interesting. If somebody was trying to make a career pivot, you know, but you wouldn't know that if you didn't know it. So, yeah.
There's so much that we all don't know,
Yeah.
especially as you dig deeper and deeper into the different corners
Yeah.
of the workforce.
Yeah.
And also, like, I find it kind of fascinating, I think for kids is really too, is understanding what makes the world tick. Like,
Yes.
hey, to live the way we do, all of these things need to happen. And there are people whose job it is to do these pieces of it so that the food gets here and delivered there and
Yeah.
whatever, and, all of
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Now, I didn't ask you this ahead of time, but do you have any stories of like people who've used this or had like an aha that was kind of like memorable for you? Do you have anything like
Yes.
that?
Yeah. And so one thing that comes to mind that I really loved is a lot of people are interested in things relating to medicine and healthcare, but we tend to think of those things as doctor, nurse, and then the really more approachable stuff that doesn't require a lot of training, like phlebotomy and like, those sorts of
Mhm.
things.
Yes.
But it's just a tiny fraction of the
Yes.
healthcare
So
industry,
many.
right? And so there was there was somebody, a student, who basically had said, "Look, I don't want to be a traditional doctor, and I don't want to be a nurse, but I'm really interested in helping people and their well-being." And Orchie had asked, "Well, what is it about that excites you, and what specifically kind of piques your interest?" And they said, "I'm really interested in the brain." And you're like, "That's interesting. Okay, so you know, how does the brain function? How does it relate to things that are critically important for a person's health?" And that surfaced occupational therapy. And so an occupational therapist is someone who tends to work, it can be a lot of different things, but tends to work with people to regain, motor function and in certain areas and stuff like that. And a lot of it has to do with the brain. And so they
Yes.
got into this and go down this rabbit hole and end up, watching an occupational therapist talk about
Yeah.
their life, how they got there, how, they're working a few days a week as an occupational therapist, helping people like regain, the function of their legs and like all
Yes.
this kind of stuff, right? That it doesn't hit anyone's radar. You could have asked me, what's an occupational therapist? And I'm like, some
Yeah.
kind of therapist that does
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. No, that's a great example because, yeah, we don't know we don't know what exists, all the things that exist out there. I like, because I do this, like, I ask people about their careers all the time. I was in the oral surgeon's office and I was talking to the tech and I said, "How did you get this job?" I said, "Did you go to school for it?" And she was like, "No, I have a bachelor's degree, but I didn't go to school for this." She said, this job that I'm doing, you don't need any kind of associate's degree. You don't need any kind of bachelor's degree. They will just hire you and then they'll pay for your training to do the next level." And I was like, "Oh, wow, that's so interesting." I actually shared it with a homeschool friend whose daughter is 18, like the next week, because her daughter was kind of in that interest range and whatever. And like, wow, how neat is it that there is actually a place you could go to get all these random, kind of like that random information that you don't, how are you going to know this, right? Like, how are you going to know these things? And what would you say? Okay, I know like this is going to be something that people who are not just schools can use. So, what would you say for an adult? I'm going to just kind of leave it broad. An adult who's working with a young person who's kind of trying to figure out the next thing, right? And it could be a grandparent, it could be a parent, it could be in a homeschool group, it could be in a school. Like, how are you able to guide that conversation in a way that's productive without kind of pigeonholing them into a thing? Like, what would you encourage them to do? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, the way I think about it is every person should have purpose and direction in their life. And I think there's way too often that we talk about, hey, for the people that are just lost, for the people that are just lost, we need to get the lost people in here and get them, unstuck. And that's true. There are a lot of people that are lost, but just because a student has a particular interest or has set like, I'm going to go to college and I'm going to do something in business. Like you wouldn't believe the number of times I hear these things, um, and it's not to like poke fun at anybody, but like, oh yeah, my son is really interested in business, so he's going to do something in business, and I'm like, business is very broad.
Very broad.
Very, very, very broad,
Not as
right?
broad as psychology. It's kind of a different
Or,
sort of broad.
or
Yeah.
healthcare, right?
Yeah.
They're going to do something in technology. Even if you say like, yeah, they're going to, focus on becoming an engineer. It's like
Uh-huh.
there's like 17 types of engineers,
Yes, there are.
and they're very different educational paths. They're very
Yeah.
different core competencies. They're underlying threads. But the point is that every student, every human being really, like, needs this stuff. And so I would just encourage people to think of it more as part of regular ongoing development and part of like your life plan as much as doing your regular schoolwork or doing extracurriculars or whatever it may be, right? That's how I would describe it.
Okay. So kind of like it kind of requires a little bit of a reframe on the way we've looked at this topic in general. Like we do some things, people that work out, we do this habitually. You don't just wake up one morning and say like, "Oh, I wish I was 50 pounds heavier. If I run one time today, I'll lose it." No, it doesn't work. This is like a habitual development of the idea that you're like cultivating your future kind of thing. Like this is a cultivation of your future.
Yeah, and then there's sort of the vitamin versus painkiller
Yeah.
analogy, right? Where
Yeah.
it's like if you're going to be really, really healthy, you're going to eat right, you're going to exercise, you're going to take your vitamins, you're going to get your sleep, you can do all the stuff, right? But what most people respond to is the painkiller, which is the weight loss pill,
Yeah.
right? And
Right.
so this could be a little bit of both. Ideally, it's more the vitamin that you actually want to consume. But unfortunately, that's not how, most people's psychology works. And so,
Yeah.
yes, in the pain example of, we don't know what our kids going to want to do with their life or whether they should go to college or not, or which
Yeah.
college to pick
Yeah.
or how to get experience or any of that stuff. All of those things are pain points that can be worked on through this.
Yeah. All right. Well, Corey, this was amazing. I'm like now excited to get back in there again and try it again because now I'm realizing there's even more than, I mean, there was a lot in there, but I hadn't talked to you yet. So now I'm like super excited. This was very helpful. And I want to encourage other parents who have young people that they're launching and want to do it well to go check it out too. It's at orchard.career, right? Is that right? Okay.
Careers. Yeah.
Dot careers.
Orchard.careers.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Corey.
Yeah, my pleasure. Let's go create some lesson plans.
That's right. Thank you.
All right. All right. See you, Sarah.